A weathered limestone doorway stands high in the rugged mountains of northern Ethiopia. Its edges are worn smooth by centuries of passing hands. Fine dust settles into narrow cracks, where sunlight reaches only for a few moments each day. Inside, rows of carefully preserved parchment manuscripts rest beneath layers of cloth, protected from heat, moisture, and time. Ink drawn centuries ago still clings to the page. The letters remain dark. The margins remain sharp. Not decoration, not symbolism. A physical manuscript carrying one of the oldest surviving copies of a text that disappeared from most of the Christian world, while continuing to be read, copied, and guarded in another. For centuries, the Book of Enoch occupied a strange place in religious history. Early Jewish communities knew its contents. Some early Christian writers quoted from it with respect. Yet over time, it was excluded from the biblical canon, recognized by most Christian traditions, even as it continued to survive within the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. The text itself never truly vanished. It simply traveled a different path through history, preserved in places where few outsiders thought to look. While many ancient writings faded into fragments, the Book of Enoch remained remarkably complete, waiting for scholars to compare its surviving manuscripts with discoveries made centuries later. Then the evidence expanded in an unexpected direction. During the 20th century, ancient Aramaic fragments of the Book of Enoch were recovered among the manuscripts found near the Dead Sea, confirming that the work existed long before its surviving Ethiopian copies were written. Suddenly, what many had considered a distant religious tradition stood connected to physical evidence buried for nearly 2,000 years. Pieces separated by languages, centuries, and geography aligned with remarkable consistency. The picture became much larger than anyone had imagined. At the center of the Book of Enoch lies an extraordinary claim. It describes heaven as an ordered kingdom where every human life is known before the final judgment, where angels serve as witnesses, where books preserve every action, and where every soul eventually stands before the presence of divine authority. Throughout its chapters, the text repeatedly emphasizes that judgment is not random. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing disappears. Every word, every action, and every hidden intention enters a record that cannot be altered. In the next several minutes, you'll see what the text actually says about the moment every soul approaches the heavenly gates, how ancient manuscripts describe the witnesses present during that encounter, and why these passages have continued to attract the attention of historians, theologians, and readers for centuries. If ancient manuscripts and forgotten biblical traditions fascinate you, hit subscribe. Every week, we uncover what history preserved, what later generations debated, and how remarkable texts from the ancient world continue to shape conversations today. But here's what makes this stranger. The Book of Enoch does not simply describe heaven as a distant destination. It presents it as a place governed by order, records, appointed messengers, and carefully described sequences that unfold with remarkable precision. As the chapters progress, repeated references to books, witnesses, judgments, and spoken declarations begin to form a pattern. Whether those descriptions are understood literally, symbolically, or theologically has been debated for generations. Yet the consistency of the text itself remains impossible to ignore. Before examining those passages in detail, it is worth understanding who preserved this remarkable work, how it survived the collapse of ancient civilizations, and why its words continued to endure when so many other writings disappeared forever. The surviving manuscripts begin to reveal their structure long before they reveal their conclusions. The Book of Enoch is not written as a single, uninterrupted account. Instead, it unfolds through carefully arranged sections, each building upon the one before it. The earliest portion introduces Enoch as a man who is taken into the heavenly realms and shown realities hidden from ordinary human sight. From there, the text moves through visions of angels, cosmic order, places of judgment, and the future of humanity. Rather than presenting isolated scenes, the manuscript develops a continuous picture in which every event is connected to a larger system governed by divine authority. One of the most striking themes appears again and again. Nothing in heaven seems unrecorded. The text repeatedly describes angels acting as observers, messengers carrying reports, and heavenly books preserving the actions of every generation. These records are never presented as symbols of memory alone. They function as official testimony. Every decision, every act of justice, and every act of rebellion is treated as something witnessed and preserved. As the narrative advances, Enoch is shown chambers, thrones, and assemblies, where these records are connected to future judgment. The descriptions are restrained, almost administrative in tone, as though the manuscript wants the reader to understand that heaven operates with perfect order rather than confusion. Among the most discussed passages are those describing the heavenly throne. Enoch speaks of overwhelming brightness, countless attendants, and a court where nothing remains hidden. He portrays angels standing in ordered ranks, each carrying out an assigned responsibility without hesitation. The language emphasizes structure instead of spectacle. Even when extraordinary visions appear, the focus quickly returns to responsibility, accountability, and the certainty that every soul will eventually answer for the life it has lived. Throughout these chapters, the repeated message is unmistakable. Divine judgment is neither rushed nor arbitrary. It follows an order already established long before humanity becomes aware of it. As these scenes unfold, another detail begins to emerge. The manuscript repeatedly associates names with identity and responsibility. Individuals are not treated as anonymous figures passing through history. They are known, recognized, and distinguished within the heavenly record. This emphasis on being fully known has led generations of readers to reflect on the title of this documentary. While the Book of Enoch speaks extensively about judgment, heavenly books, and divine acknowledgement, it does not provide a simple list of fixed words spoken over every soul at heaven's gate. Instead, it presents a broader picture in which each person's life is examined according to justice, and every individual stands before the divine presence with nothing concealed. That distinction is important because it shapes how the entire text should be read. The power of the Book of Enoch does not come from offering a secret phrase or hidden formula. It comes from its persistent claim that every human life carries lasting significance. Every action matters. Every choice leaves a record. Every generation is accountable. As we continue deeper into the manuscript, the visions grow even more detailed. Enoch is taken beyond the heavenly court into places where the destinies of both angels and humanity are revealed together, creating a picture that has fascinated readers for centuries and continues to invite careful study today. Enoch's journey reaches another stage as he is guided beyond the heavenly court into regions that are described with remarkable precision. Mountains of immense height rise beyond the horizon. Rivers flow through landscapes untouched by human civilization. Great chambers are shown where different groups await the fulfillment of divine judgment. The manuscript presents these locations as ordered rather than chaotic. Each place has a purpose. Each boundary exists for a reason. The text repeatedly emphasizes separation between righteousness and rebellion, obedience and corruption, faithfulness and violence. Nothing appears accidental. Every destination reflects a decision that has already been made through the course of a person's life. One of the most significant themes in these chapters is accountability. Enoch witnesses the consequences faced by the Watchers, the group of angels described as abandoning their appointed place and introducing forbidden knowledge to humanity. According to the text, their actions brought corruption that spread across the earth, affecting entire generations. Their judgment is portrayed not as immediate destruction, but as confinement while awaiting a final sentence. The manuscript describes them acknowledging their own failure and recognizing that the order established by God cannot be overturned. Whether readers understand these passages literally or symbolically, the central message remains consistent. No being, human or heavenly, exists outside divine justice. As Enoch continues to observe these visions, attention repeatedly returns to humanity. The manuscript portrays every generation moving toward an appointed day when hidden actions become visible. The emphasis is not on dramatic speeches delivered at a heavenly gate, but on complete disclosure. The heavenly books mentioned throughout the text contain a record that cannot be rewritten or erased. Every act of compassion, every injustice, every truth spoken, and every deception committed is presented as part of that record. In this way, the Book of Enoch encourages its readers to view life as meaningful in every detail. Nothing is insignificant, because nothing is forgotten. The manuscript also introduces a figure often described as the Chosen One, or the Son of Man, who appears in later sections of the text. This figure is associated with righteousness, wisdom, and the final establishment of justice. The descriptions are brief compared with later religious writings, yet they have attracted the attention of historians and theologians for centuries because of their influence on later Jewish and Christian thought. Within the narrative, this figure represents the certainty that judgment will ultimately be carried out with perfect fairness. The repeated message is that power alone does not determine the future, justice does. As these visions accumulate, the Book of Enoch begins to reveal a consistent pattern rather than a collection of isolated revelations. Heaven is portrayed as a realm of perfect order. Angels serve specific responsibilities. Records preserve every action. Judgment follows established principles instead of impulse. Humanity is not moving toward uncertainty, but toward accountability before a righteous judge. These chapters do not ask the reader to fear hidden knowledge as much as they encourage reflection on the choices made each day. The manuscript's enduring influence comes from this repeated reminder: history is observed, actions carry lasting weight, and the pursuit of righteousness matters because every life is ultimately measured against a standard that, according to the text, never changes. The later visions of the Book of Enoch begin to shift from individual judgment to the unfolding of history itself. Instead of focusing on a single generation, the manuscript presents humanity as moving through appointed periods, each marked by increasing moral responsibility. Kingdoms rise and disappear. Powerful rulers gain influence and then fade from the record. Nations that once appeared permanent become little more than names remembered in ancient writings. Yet throughout these sweeping changes, the text insists that heaven remains unchanged. The divine order described in the earlier chapters continues without interruption, watching history unfold according to a timetable beyond human control. From Enoch's perspective, earthly events are temporary, but the heavenly record remains constant. One of the most remarkable features of these sections is the use of symbolic visions to describe the relationship between humanity and divine justice. Leaders, shepherds, animals, and stars appear throughout the narrative, each representing larger realities that the manuscript expects its readers to recognize. Although the imagery becomes more complex, the central message remains surprisingly direct. Human power has limits. Every empire eventually reaches its conclusion. Every authority answers to a greater authority. According to the Book of Enoch, history is not a series of disconnected events, but a carefully observed sequence moving toward a final moment of accountability. The text repeatedly reminds the reader that what appears hidden on earth is fully visible from heaven. As Enoch is shown these unfolding events, another consistent pattern emerges. The righteous are described not as those possessing secret knowledge, but as those who remain faithful despite corruption around them. Their confidence comes from trust rather than power. They are encouraged to endure injustice because the manuscript declares that divine judgment never loses sight of those who remain faithful. At the same time, those who misuse authority or pursue violence are portrayed as storing consequences that will eventually confront them. The language is measured and deliberate. The emphasis is not on revenge, but on certainty. Justice may appear delayed, but according to the text, it is never abandoned. These chapters also return to one of the manuscript's most enduring themes, remembrance. The Book of Enoch repeatedly contrasts the fading memory of human achievements with the permanence of the heavenly record. Monuments collapse, cities disappear, names once feared by entire nations eventually pass into history. Yet the manuscript insists that every individual remains known before God. This perspective transforms the way the text understands significance. Lasting importance is not measured by earthly success, but by faithfulness, righteousness, and obedience. The repeated references to heavenly books reinforce the idea that what matters most cannot always be measured by the standards of the world. As the visions approach their conclusion, the narrative begins drawing together the themes introduced from the beginning of Enoch's journey. The heavenly court, the angelic witnesses, the preserved records, the judgment of the watchers, and the future hope of final justice all point toward the same conclusion. The Book of Enoch presents the universe as governed by moral order rather than chance. Every generation participates in that order, whether it recognizes it or not. The manuscript does not claim that history is controlled by human ambition. Instead, it consistently declares that history moves toward a final reckoning in which truth is fully revealed, justice is completely established, and every soul stands before the one who has witnessed every moment from the very beginning. As the final sections of the Book of Enoch unfold, the focus narrows once again from the rise and fall of nations to the destiny of every individual. After describing vast movements of history, heavenly courts, and the judgment of rebellious angels, the manuscript returns to a deeply personal reality. Every person, regardless of status, wealth, or influence, ultimately stands before the same divine authority. Kings and servants, scholars and laborers, the powerful and the forgotten, are all presented as equal before the heavenly record. The text repeatedly emphasizes that no earthly achievement can replace righteousness, and no hidden act remains concealed forever. What matters most is not what humanity remembers, but what heaven has witnessed from the beginning. Throughout these concluding visions, Enoch describes a future in which justice is fully established. The righteous are portrayed as receiving peace after enduring hardship, while those who embraced violence, deception, and oppression face the consequences of their own choices. The manuscript consistently avoids presenting judgment as arbitrary. Instead, every outcome reflects a life already lived. The heavenly books mentioned throughout the text function as complete records rather than selective accounts. According to the Book of Enoch, every word spoken, every promise kept, every act of mercy, and every injustice committed forms part of a testimony that cannot be altered. This repeated emphasis gives the manuscript a remarkable consistency from beginning to end. Its message never changes. Heaven sees with complete clarity, and divine justice proceeds with perfect knowledge. One detail that has fascinated readers for generations is the way the manuscript describes recognition before God. Although modern discussions sometimes suggest that the Book of Enoch contains a single set of exact words spoken over every soul at heaven's gate, the surviving text does not present such a formula. Instead, it describes something far more profound. Each individual is known completely. Nothing about a person's life remains hidden. The language of the manuscript suggests that identity itself is fully revealed before the divine presence. There is no opportunity to create another version of oneself or to conceal past actions behind appearances. The truth of every life stands openly before the heavenly court. This is one of the reasons the Book of Enoch has continued to provoke careful reading across centuries. Its emphasis is not on secret phrases, but on complete accountability. As these visions reach their conclusion, hope remains just as prominent as judgment. The manuscript repeatedly promises that injustice does not have the final word. Those who remain faithful despite suffering are assured that their endurance has not gone unnoticed. The same heavenly records that preserve human failures also preserve acts of compassion, faithfulness, and obedience. Every kindness shown to another person, every moment of integrity, and every decision made in pursuit of righteousness carries lasting significance. This balance between justice and hope gives the Book of Enoch much of its enduring power. It warns against corruption while offering confidence that goodness is never forgotten. By the closing chapters, Enoch's journey has become more than a series of extraordinary visions. It has become a sustained reflection on responsibility, memory, and the certainty that every human life possesses eternal significance. Whether describing angels, heavenly books, future judgment, or the renewal of creation, the manuscript consistently points toward one conclusion: history is moving toward a day when truth is fully revealed. According to the Book of Enoch, that future is not defined by confusion or uncertainty, but by perfect justice, complete knowledge, and the assurance that every soul is seen exactly as it truly is. The final pages of the Book of Enoch do not end with confusion or unanswered questions. Instead, they return to the same theme that has echoed through every vision from the beginning. The universe is governed by an order that does not change. Human civilizations rise with confidence and disappear into history. Languages evolve, kingdoms fall, libraries burn, and manuscripts are scattered across continents. Yet the message preserved within this ancient work remains remarkably consistent. According to the text, heaven is not a place of uncertainty, but of perfect knowledge. Every generation passes away, but the divine record continues. Every life reaches its conclusion, but every action remains known before the one who judges with complete justice. That conviction is what binds together Enoch's visions of angels, heavenly books, cosmic order, and the destiny of humanity. For centuries, readers have approached the Book of Enoch searching for hidden mysteries, forgotten prophecies, or secret knowledge unavailable anywhere else. Some have focused on its descriptions of the Watchers. Others have been drawn to its visions of the heavenly throne, or its references to the Chosen One. Still others have wondered whether the manuscript reveals details about the moment every soul enters eternity. Yet when the entire work is read from beginning to end, a different picture begins to emerge. The greatest emphasis is not placed on satisfying curiosity about heaven, but on transforming life before that day arrives. The manuscript repeatedly directs attention back to justice, humility, faithfulness, and personal responsibility. It reminds its readers that preparing for judgment is less about discovering hidden information and more about the way one chooses to live each day. That perspective may help explain why the Book of Enoch has continued to inspire discussion across so many centuries. Historians study it because it preserves valuable insight into ancient Jewish thought before the time of the New Testament. Biblical scholars examine its influence on later religious writings and its relationship to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Theologians debate its interpretation and its place within the history of Scripture. Meanwhile, ordinary readers continue returning to its pages because its central questions remain deeply human. Does justice ultimately prevail? Are human actions truly remembered? Does goodness matter when evil often appears to prosper? The Book of Enoch answers each of these questions with unwavering confidence. It declares that nothing escapes divine attention, and that history is moving toward a moment when every hidden thing is brought into the light. Whether one accepts every vision described by Enoch or approaches the manuscript primarily as an ancient religious text, its lasting influence cannot be denied. It survived centuries of political upheaval, changing languages, and shifting religious traditions. Fragments preserved near the Dead Sea confirmed its great antiquity, while complete manuscripts, safeguarded in Ethiopia, ensured that its message would continue reaching new generations. Across thousands of years, the text has remained a witness to the hopes, fears, and convictions of those who believed that heaven is neither silent nor indifferent, but actively aware of every human life. And so the journey ends where it quietly began. A weathered limestone doorway still stands among the ancient mountains of Ethiopia. Dust still gathers inside its worn edges. Parchment manuscripts still rest behind protective coverings, their ink-preserving words copied by careful hands centuries ago. The doorway is still there, still standing, still guarding one of history's most remarkable surviving texts. And the questions raised by the Book of Enoch are still waiting, inviting each new generation to open the pages, examine the evidence for themselves, and reflect on what it might mean to live as though every life is known, every choice matters, and every soul ultimately stands before